gonna hop in live. Is that, if that's all right with Nimbus team? Great. So if you point to me, Michael, when you start the timer, then I'll count down in my head, and then I'll do the introduction. Is this call number 13? Yes. Did you point? Hi, everyone. I'm SuperFizz from the ETHStaker Community. Today is December 14th, 2020, and we are here with ETHStaker Community Call number 13, and we are here with the Status Nimbus team, who develops the Nimbus beacon chain client and validator. I'd like to introduce everyone really quickly, and then we will get into the meat and bones of the call. With me this morning, I have two of the ETHStakers. That is Michael, who you know as Unvetica, and Patricio Werthalter, who is also the mastermind behind POAP. And I haven't been involved with this, but I assume we have for today, right?
Yes, we do. Maybe you should tell them how to get it, which is paying attention to the private messages and so on.
Great, sure. So during this call, Patricio will be looking through the participant list, and he will be sending you a private message that includes a link to poap.xyz. And when you click on that link, it will open up a page where you can claim your POAP. If you have any trouble with that, we'll get you taken care of. The best thing to do if you have trouble is to stop by either the POAP Discord or the ETHStaker Discord after the call. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Status, or Nimbus, and I see Zahary, Sacha, and Mamy here this morning. So Sacha, if you'd like to just kind of introduce yourself and share your team with us, we can get started.
All right. So I'm mainly on technical writing and user experience with Nimbus. Yeah, I mean, Mamy and Zahary are the ones that are really, and the rest of the team are the ones that are really making this possible. I'm just kind of the mouthpiece.
That must be how we connected, because I'm just a talking head too. Like I didn't mean that offensively to you, but I am just a talker. So yeah, we're glad to have you, Zahary and Mamy.
Well, I would say that Sacha is also the person who makes it possible for us to have actual users, because thanks to his effort.
Great. And can you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah.
Well, let's say, Mamy, hello. How are you this morning? So
hey.
I guess it would be good to begin with what your role is, what your individual roles are on the Nimbus team. And so, Zahary, would you like to give us an idea what your overall role is?
Well, within the Nimbus team, we don't have much of a hierarchy. We are pretty flat as an organization. Both me and Mamy are just developers on the project. Everybody has developed quite a lot of the individual subsystems within Nimbus. It would be too many to list them right now, but we try to be responsible for the components that we have developed.
Cool, great. And if you wouldn't mind, so one of the things that we're always interested in, especially like home users and home stakers, is how you found yourself, like what your background is that led you up here. Because I know we have a lot of aspiring developers who are curious, like, how did you find yourself in this position? Like, what educational background or what other jobs have you had that have led you to where you are?
Well, our project is unusual because it uses this rather exotic programming language called NIM. It's not very widely known, but it has many interesting properties. When you develop software with NIM, you can achieve the performance characteristics of languages like C and C++, and or Rust, for example. But at the same time, you get to enjoy much more high-level language constructs, and you can create APIs that are very easy for others to consume. So this language is not very well known, but it's been around for more than 10 years. And actually, I was one of the early contributors to NIM. I've been involved with the language for more than 8 years now, and pretty much that's how I end up in Status. When they announced that they'll be making a NIM project, it was very obvious for me that I should apply and should learn everything I can about Ethereum so I can help this project move forward. And for Status, it was an obvious choice to hire veterans from the NIM community. And that's what our team is, so to speak. We were able to hire the most productive, most prolific open source contributors from the NIM community. I've never worked on a team like this before, where each and every member of the team has very strong GitHub profile with many, many interesting projects.
And just to get back on the aspiring programmers who wants to get into Ethereum 2. So the team started in January 2018 with a Reddit post. In the NIM subreddit, Jarad, the CEO of Status, posted a job offer and people applied, and that's how the team got started. And then, so that's how I applied, and I assume Zahary too. And then Zahary recruited like half of us. And we are about 10 now. We have very different background. Some of us, like Zahary, did game programming, then compiler development. Myself, actually, that's my first job as a professional developer, but I've been doing development in NIM for 2 years before 2018. And in the past, I was a sysadmin in finance and then in nonprofit. So I went into different areas, and I have a mechanical engineering degree. So the most important thing for us in the team is showcase your portfolio and show that you can develop application and project, and you can do it step by step. You cannot start with something complex right away, but show that you can deliver. That's the most important thing.
I love that advice. I see a lot of interested people who are so willing to showcase their ability, but have difficulty actually delivering a product. So that's excellent advice for anybody who wants to get involved with any project. Thank you. So can you give us a background about what is unique about Nimbus? So, you know, we have 4, I call them launch clients, or 4 beacon chain clients available right now. And one of my biggest interests in promoting Nimbus is, as far as I can tell right now, it doesn't have as large of a market share as some of the other clients. And my interest is in improving client diversity. And so if I were to ask you to sell me Nimbus, how would you sell it to me?
Well, a key differentiator for us, I think, is that we didn't have so many foundational software on which we can build upon. So we have to write pretty much everything from scratch. So this means that we get to build the components in the leanest way possible. They are lightweight. We don't have any excess fat. We get to know the system as a whole. We get to optimize the different parts so they work in synchron with each other. And the end result is, and we spent quite a lot of time trying to avoid complexity in the system. So we put some additional constraints upon us, such as working on a single thread that forced us to optimize the software in different way than the rest of the clients. And so the result right now is that we have some advantages when it comes to memory footprint. We use less memory than the other clients. And I think rather soon, we will be able to capitalize on our single-threaded architecture by introducing just a little bit of multi-threading where it matters. So to get both the high performance and the lightweight design at the same time.
And that single-threaded design is pretty exciting, or at least the light footprint, because it gives you the opportunity to install on a wider variety of systems and architectures. What are some of the interesting, and so I guess I'm asking a leading question because I first became, my first install with Nimbus was on a Google Pixel phone, and I was delighted to see how smoothly it ran. Can you share some of the other systems that might be a good match for Nimbus?
So for now, obviously, ARM64 and Raspberry Pi are our main target, but we don't want to exclude in the future things that like routers now, they run on MIPS, and so there are a lot of MIPS hardware, and even in some smart TV, there are some stuff like this. I can't say you should run ETH2 on that, but maybe at one point there will be a need to just monitor the beacon chain. So might be, but for now, I guess ARM64, and in the future, it's no secret that in Status, we really like open source, open hardware, and RISC V5 is an open hardware as well, so maybe we will look into that. But yeah, just as I said, it's like maybe 5 years, 6 years from now. Who knows what the future is?
Yeah, that makes me curious, like, and maybe you're not able or ready to disclose it yet, but it seems like you have this very tight, compact client that can almost fit in a smart toaster. So are you able to tell us what you're aiming for in the next 5 years with that? Or are you literally just feeling it out right now?
It will really depend on phase 1 and phase 2. But you can imagine that in the future you have a point of sale unit, like they used to use credit cards. We have the key cards of Status, and maybe we'll be able to install a small Nimbus library to serve as an endpoint if ETH2 becomes something huge.
Sure, and that's exciting because that makes me think of that is a whole lot of product potential. So, are there trade-offs? Have there been sacrifices? Are there sacrifices in the beacon chain client and validator that make Nimbus work, or is it as fully featured as the other clients?
There have been sacrifices in terms of time because unlike, for example, some of our clients that already had a Go lib-P2P or Rust lib-P2P, we had to develop everything from scratch, which we shortcutted by hiring a lib-P2P developer, but we still had to develop everything from scratch. This has two implications. One, time. It takes a lot of time, but the benefit is we control everything, and auditors in particular really liked that because they knew that they didn't have to dive into a tree of dependencies that couldn't be audited. They knew, okay, everything is there. That's good.
That's exciting. So I get that it can run single-threaded, it can run on Raspberry Pi, and it has a low memory footprint. Can you talk to me about the data as in the data storage as it compares to other clients, and then the bandwidth as it compares to other clients?
Oh, I think in data storage in particular, all the clients still haven't reached their potential. I mean, I know that we are can be compared relatively well against the other right now. But even we are very acutely aware of how inefficiently we use the storage right now. So this is an area that we'll be focusing in the next month. And I think all the people in the ETH community, in the Staker community, should expect dramatic improvements on that front.
Okay, so I guess if we're to rate these categories, in terms of processor and memory footprint, Nimbus is probably a leader. And in terms of data storage, you suggest there's a lot of work to be done. How about in terms of bandwidth usage?
So just to go back on processor and data storage, for example, one of the issue that we have right now, and I think most of the clients are working on it, is we don't have pruning, which is a problem if you store data for 3 months or so. And in terms of CPU, I think we are pretty good on single-threaded, but as many have seen the sync report, we still have work to do for initial sync. 6 months from now, there will be a fast sync called weak subjectivity sync, and this means that sync speed wouldn't matter, but since we don't know when this will be available, clients have prototypes, but we don't have a way to provide the checkpoint securely right now. We are working on sync speed, and this goes through multi-threading, which is a PR that I'm kind of shilling right now in the Nimbus Discord channel, and we hope to have this a week from now in Devil and 3 weeks from now released in mainnet, hopefully. And for bandwidth, it's more of the area of Zahary, so I let him respond to that.
Well, in the bandwidth side, you can say that the majority of E2 traffic is the gossip traffic. And I mean, we recently brought some improvements, and you can actually say bug fixes that reduce the traffic to the levels that the other clients are getting right now. We used to be a little bit above them. But I believe in order to improve the gossip traffic in general, this can only come with some optimizations to the protocols, which are more difficult to coordinate and a bit less likely to happen, I guess.
Sure.
Do you guys have an open validator? I mean, when I say open, it's one that you are willing to disclose the index number for us to monitor the performance of it?
Yes, we operate validators. I believe all of the client teams are running their own validators. And surely we can disclose this. Something that we've been considering is creating a status page where you can see how our fleet of validators is doing right now, and with statistics about their performance.
That's something the community would appreciate. We have the idea of collecting at least one validator of each client, and also from some staking provider, staking services. So we can have some sort of dashboard and see how things are going. So if you ever decide to publicize this, we would love to have access to that information.
Yes, actually, thank you for sharing this. I mean, I'm always very interesting to hear, like, what are the perspectives of the actual users, what they care about in the teams. And we'll be working on that status page. One other place where you can kind of compare clients right now is on the Peermont network, which is actually much more heavier than mainnet, and it's likely to continue to be this way for a while. So you can always take a look at the leaderboards in the Peermont network, for example, by scoping it to the last week or to the last day to see how the different clients compare there.
And there is ETH.stats.wtf, I think, to get some resource usage statistics from people who who put some of their performance metrics, uploaded their performance metrics.
Thank you.
There are validators that put Nimbus in the graffiti, and we did speak last week on our call about putting in publicizing the dashboard for our validators, because I think as Mamy and Zahary have communicated, because we've had to build everything from the ground up, the first priority was getting things working, and the second priority is getting things to work fast and well, and so it was only really after the or quite late in the day that Nimbus started working well, and now the focus is on optimizing. And I think a lot of people in the community may have tried Nimbus at an earlier stage where things were not working so well. So I think it's important to as you said, have a resource where people can track how the validators are doing and can see the improvements we've made.
And it's very interesting that you say that, because that is my purpose for reaching out. Like I'm under the impression that Status is an equal contender, and I kind of had a direction on that, but I lost it. I'm curious, like, about the installation. One of the things that is still difficult for many end users is installation. Things like installing and then adding additional keys. What is the workflow for Nimbus right now in terms of documentation, installation, and adding new keys?
Well, our book would be the guide that everybody should be using right now to get started. But this is actually an area where we've been thinking a lot lately. We want to, right now it's fair to say that operating a validator in Ethereum 2 is quite technically complicated. It is mostly possible for power users, so to speak. And we want to make this, to democratize it a little bit. We want to make it very easy to install the Beacon node through, for example, the packages in your operating system. And then we imagine that would be quite useful if you pair your phone, for example, with your Nimbus installation, so you can manage it and monitor it right from your mobile phone or your desktop.
Are those tools available right now?
Oh, I mean, as I said, these are our aspirations.
Oh, okay. Sure. So you kind of explained, and it does make sense, that part of Nimbus's lower market share is a result of having to build from scratch where other clients had existing libraries. And it seems like Nimbus is more or less on par with all of the other clients now. Is it a mission of your team to increase market share, or are you, kind of as Mamy said, are you focused on that 5-year plan where you're more interested in future solutions?
The only way we can survive for 5 years is to have users now. So it's very important for us to have users now, understand their needs, meet them. And also, as everyone knows, the best distribution of clients for everyone on ETH2 is to have an equal share for everyone. So 25% for all 4 clients. And when Lodestar goes online, 20% for everyone, because this way, if there is an issue on one client, only 20% goes down, and there is no like big slashing and finality issues like we had in Medaya or in Altona for the old testnets.
Sure, yeah, and that is, I'm so appreciative that you said that, because as we're here with the community now, for people who watch this in the next few days and weeks, if you're bringing a validator online, Nimbus is an excellent choice, because they're ready. They have what I've experienced as an easy installation procedure. And so will someone tell me what happens? And maybe you kind of hinted about this. What happens if you're running Nimbus, which is a minority client, and something like Prism experiences, and I'm not picking on Prism, one of the majority clients experiences some kind of fault? What does that scenario look like as for a home user who chose to run Nimbus rather than a majority client?
So what happens is that if there are many failures on either inactivity or wrong attestation or block being produced, the ETH2 protocol will consider that as an attack, and then the penalties will get very, very high. And So those being penalized will have a large part of a stake slashed, and the one who survive likely will slash them and earn more money as well. Sure.
Yeah, we know that even if you're not running a slasher, if you are an online proposer when a majority of the network is offline, then your rewards will actually be more significant. So if you're running a minority client when a majority client is offline, you are contributing to the network health by keeping the chain going. You'll have greater greater proposer rewards, and it really is beneficial to the health of the overall network.
Actually, right now, running a slasher is really a pro bono thing, because only the one who includes the slashing proof actually gets the reward. But in the future, I expect running a slasher would also get a reward.
And I wasn't actually referring to slashing, and please help me understand this, because I acknowledge that I'm still learning a lot of this. If several blocks or slots are missed by what would be a majority client, and then a Nimbus or an online client then proposes a block, is the reward not higher than it would have been if they were sequential blocks? And it's difficult for everyone to understand, so I'm still learning myself. I wouldn't expect you to have the answer offhand.
No, I don't have the answer. I would have to recheck the spec, and everyone knows the beast it is. And
yes.
Even though I implemented it.
Well, I can talk a little bit about this. Actually, the stronger mechanism here is something that it's called the correlated failure. So you want to anti-correlate yourself from the behavior of the other nodes in the network. Because if many nodes are currently offline, the penalty for being offline increases. So by running a majority client, you expose yourself to the risk that if there is a problem with this client, the portion of the validators that will go offline at that moment will be much larger than if you're running a minority client. So because of these correlated penalties, anytime an incident like this happens, you'll be suffering larger penalties. Now, I believe there is no difference when it comes to the block proposal rewards, and actually something that we discovered on the Medallia network is that even when people are offline during the periods when the network is not finalizing, you are still not guaranteed that you'll be running on profit. So the people in the community should really try to minimize the risk of the network experiencing any outages like this. And again, on Medallia, we learned that a technical incident, no matter how trivial it is, could knock the network out of finalization. So I think there's a little bit of responsibility here to keep the network in good health.
And I realized that was a shock to many users that they were running active validators that were continuing to attest and propose, but because the network was in leakage, they also had difficulty maintaining or keeping their same balance, and it appeared that they were leaking as well. There were some parameter changes after that.
Yes, following that incident, I think it was on Altona or Wiki, I don't remember exactly, but the spec was changed. This can be checked in GitHub.
Sure, yeah, and I think, if I recall correctly, that meant that if you remained online and were doing your job, you would not, ideally, and you would not see a decrease in balance. Is that your recollection as well?
Yeah, that's yes. What the parameters were trying to do. But okay. it all depends on the very specific way that the incident will play itself.
Sure. I wonder, let's say that someone is watching today. I think we have quite a few users, I think 50 or 60 users. If one of these people is setting up a validator today, how do you have an outreach program going on? Do you have So I know about your Nimbus Discord. What is the best way for a user to find your community and become an active learner or participant?
And that's definitely the Discord. I mean, there's someone online basically at almost any hour of the day, and we've split up the channels into quite detailed subcategories, although it doesn't matter if you get the category wrong, but there'll always be someone there to help. I'd say that would be the main port of call. And definitely check out the Nimbus book. I've posted that in the discussion, but that's sort of aiming to be a really first principles introduction into how to validate and yeah.
If I can confess, I had difficulty when I was Googling to find installation instructions. It seemed that there were several different versions of the instructions.
So the trouble is the documentation on the Nimbus front is spread out between the website, the GitHub, and the Nimbus book, and it's not always. And also we've changed the link to the Nimbus book a couple of months ago. So right now and we haven't worked on search engine optimization at all. So it can be hard to find. That's something that I'm realizing we need to do a better. We need to publicize that better, but basically everything is in the Nimbus book, which I've posted the link here, but just to read it out loud, it is, let me just get it up. And that from our Discord is linked. So okay, so it's status-im.github.io/nimbus-eth2. But anyway, it's long to remember. I'll post it again, and I think we'll tweet it out more and make it clearer.
Yeah, and so I would say if you're listening right now, if you can get that link, one of the things that ETHStaker wants to do is promote other clients, to promote all of the clients, and we really want to exercise our agency when we can. And one of the things that we can do right now is help to promote Nimbus's installation instructions to help their SEO. So if you're watching right now, if you will find this link and tweet it or share it or post it somewhere in reference to Nimbus installation, so that we can do a couple things. If we get this out on Twitter today, we're going to increase awareness of Nimbus, and we're going to improve those Google search results so that when people are looking for those, they're going to get there more quickly.
We're actually going to, I mean, just speaking to you right now has made us realize how ridiculous the URL is. We're going to reserve a much simpler URL today, and so that's what we'll get in touch with you, and that's what we should tweet out.
Okay, so would you rather people wait then before tweeting?
No, I mean,
okay.
both of them will work, but
yeah, sure.
It's just, I think it should be a lot simpler. So yeah.
Well, and that really does meet the goal of what we're doing here. We value Nimbus in the community, especially the fact that you run on light hardware. We have so many people who want to run on light hardware, but they are only aware of the majority clients. And so if we can connect their interest in running on something like a Raspberry Pi with a product that you have that is absolutely designed for that, then I think we can have a much more vibrant community. So it's good.
Hey, Zahary, could you tell us a little more about NIM, the programming language, for example, which is the most successful application using it?
Well, NIM tries to be a general purpose programming language, but there are some communities that are where it's already a little bit more popular, you can say. And so far, I think the game development community has much stronger interest, and I see there's two main reasons for this. First of all, in the game development community, it's always many games start each project from scratch. So the development teams get to pick their technology without being so kind of forced to use legacy solutions. They get to select what to use for each project more often. And as I mentioned previously, NIM has quite good performance characteristics, and that's something that the game community as well values pretty highly. And it has also this high development speed, where you can work with very high level abstractions and something that the rich and complicated simulated worlds that are common in the game development community also benefit from.
Not knowing anything else about the language, it kind of makes me feel like Nimbus is likely the most critical application running it.
Yes, definitely. I mean, as I mentioned, we are one of the first large-scale projects using NIM. And I think at this point we have proven that the language is capable of delivering production software, so to speak.
Yeah. Aren't you afraid of upstream vulnerabilities?
We are taking this threat seriously, and it is something that the audit team actually pointed out, that our in-house libraries are considered of higher quality than the standard library of NIM. That's what our auditors told us. And actually, it is quite common in our project that we even avoid the dependencies on the standard library. Many of even the low-level components are developed in-house with this care towards security and
yeah, I was more thinking on the compiler.
Well, the compiler, I used to be one of the core compiler engineers for volunteers in the NIM community, but I was quite involved in the compiler development. And the NIM compiler is very complicated, you can say, because the language has many features. But something that's good to understand is that the code generator, this component which is which is given the task to produce C and C++ code, because that's what NIM compiles to, it's somewhat more simple component, which haven't seen a lot of bug fixes for many years now. It's relatively mature. So NIM, while the language has a lot of issues, they tend to be on the what is called the front end of the compiler. Something about things like the semantic analysis of your program, the type checking, when the error messages when you get to see when you use some NIM feature incorrectly. But once the code reaches the stage when it must generate C code, I think the number of bugs we've seen in the last few years is not so significant.
This is very interesting. I don't want to extend very much. We can talk this any other time.
Just for 5 seconds, since we generate C code or C++ code, the auditors checked also the C code generated for bugs, and we can use all the debugging and sanitizing tools available for C in NIM.
What I was scared is when you said, well, the language is quite complex and bugs hasn't been found, and it may just be that the incentives weren't there for very intensive auditing or very intensive bug hunting. But I still consider that you must be very qualified professionals and you are weighing all these risks, and eventually when Ether is $10,000 each, so running a validator is more than $250,000, maybe more resources can be allocated towards a really comprehensive and deep analysis to have complete coverage and visibility of all the stack. And although at the same time, I don't ignore that all languages are also exposed to different vulnerabilities. It's not only about complexity or popularity. So something important, because we have 20 minutes left. These community calls are open to everyone who wants to interact with our speakers and with us. So I'm going to try, have we open mic on Zoom?
Patricia, just to clarify just before, on your point, we do control the compiler as a dependency, and we are sponsoring the language, and kind of the best NIM hackers are, the people on the team were originally hacking on the compiler and so on. So there are very few teams that actually have such a symbiosis with the language they are using.
That's cool. That's really cool. I feel like I don't feel Nimbus is in any way handicapped compared to other clients because of the language choice. Computer science, computer science and distributed systems are such complex fields in science that you can't always have complete coverage and hedge all your risks. And I'm sure you're doing your best to have a reasonable threat modeling and have coverage on the different possible attacks.
I would like to.
And so I was, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to ask something real quick, because I think it'll be a good segue into opening up to the community. And I think it's pretty obvious across the length of this discussion that we're lowering the bar by adopting Nimbus, in the sense that more devices will be capable of participating in the network. So I guess extending that out, Sacha, I was reading your article about thinking hard about validator privacy. As we get more adoption and as people participate more within Ethereum and become validators, that brings up a good question about validator privacy. It sounds like it's all too easy to identify people on the network. So are there things, asking you directly or sort of the team, that we can do as solo stakers to sort of prevent accidental doxing or identifying ourselves, or just general security tips that we can deploy ourselves?
Do you want to take that, Mamy? I mean, I can speak more to the areas of research we might need to pursue, and how the spec might need to, how we may need to consider the trade-offs between how it's currently works and what you would need to have stronger privacy. But I think Mamy can talk more to what a staker can do now.
Okay, so there are two areas of privacy I see in ETH2. The number one is your IP, hiding your identity, and number two is hiding that you are a validator, and that you will have to propose a block or attest soon. So number two needs to be fixed at the protocol level, things that the EF is researching, like a secret leader election, so that you only know who will be the leader or the proposer at the very last minute. And regarding your own IP, it's similar to how if you use other peer-to-peer application, you can use a VPN, for example, but that moves the trust from your ISP to the VPN provider. So you need to select a VPN that you trust, for example, because all your traffic will be routed through it, and it will have visibility to it. So there are trade-offs. We are deeply aware of that, and even as an organization, Status is very, very focused on privacy first, censorship resistance. So even we will likely be using the research team that we have on private and censorship resistant messaging to leverage and to provide the same research on ETH2 privacy as well.
Well, and I want to also mention that solving validator privacy was one of the aspirational goals of Ethereum 2 when we were getting started. And I think only due to the complexity of evolving the LipidWe protocols in time, we weren't able to get a fully satisfactory solution yet. But the protocols should continue to evolve, so we can get more kind of automatic, out-of-the-box solution that the individual validators don't need to worry about.
I would say that's one of the trade-off for shipping ETH2 in 2020.
Yeah, one thing I would add is if you haven't made a deposit yet, is to perhaps try and break the link between your ETH1 address and your deposit. So use Tornado Cash. I think it would be cool as well to push for a 32 ETH option on Tornado Cash. I think there's a hackathon prototype that someone did, and I think that was originally the plan, but they didn't, for some reason, didn't get around to implementing in time. But that would be really cool. I mean, right now it's like 110 or 100, right? And 32 could be used by a lot more people, I think, than just stakers. So it could be useful.
And that would be a great way to annoy them on Twitter. They did sort of tacitly commit to trying to get 32 Ether out in 2020 a couple weeks ago. But if you're a Twitter warrior, it would be great to at them and kind of encourage them in an annoying way. Thank you for suggesting that. That it would be so neat. Like, that's something we all want. And Tornado Cash is already a great product, and that is a great product and a great use case that could be merged very easily. With that, I think it's great. I believe that everyone has, all of the participants have unmute capability. If you can't, that's fine. We will figure it out. But if anyone has any questions, we have a few minutes, and I'd also like to talk about POAP before we close, but I don't want to take anyone's question opportunity away, so we'll give it just a moment. So I'll chat about POAP if no one else is piping in with questions. POAP is the proof of attendance protocol, and Patricio Werthalter is the developer or the organizer behind POAP. He's kind of a diffuse kind of leader, and he encourages people to do whatever makes sense to them with POAP, and it's one of the reasons I love the platform. POAP is essentially an ERC 721 token that gets delivered individually to people who can prove that they participated in an event. And the delivery is free. They are delivered to the XDAI network, which is a side chain of the regular Ethereum network. And that delivery is free. So when Patricio sends you a link and you go to the POAP claim page and you enter your Ethereum address, it will be delivered to that Ethereum address on the XDAI network. From there, you can leave it there forever. I leave a lot of mine there, or you can actually migrate it to the regular Ethereum network. If you're interested in learning more about POAP, you can go to, well, actually, my favorite place to look at them is poap.gallery right now. You can check out Patricio's Medium blog. It's under POAP XYZ, or you can learn more at app.poap.xyz. It's something that the ETHStaker community has really gravitated toward. And if actually Michael, who you see here as Helvetica, runs the Ethereum StudyMaster.com program, and you can essentially participate in reading 10 articles and taking 10 quizzes and getting a POAP to prove that you have some fundamental knowledge of ETH2. So all of those things are really great. And
and we
really
can
happy.
make a little announcement. And it's not really an announcement, but it's a status update. We are in advanced conversations with Ethereum Foundation to give benefits to people that have certain POAPs, like the Medasha Resuscitator and the Genesis Validators, and maybe even these community calls. So if you were a passionate community member that's been dedicating energy and resources to Ethereum, you may get from simple things like exclusive swag during DevCon up to free tickets or other interesting benefits on the activities the community runs. So although POAPs are collectibles and the main value proposition is just giving you proof that you've been part of this, there are actually branches or the benefits branch out. So stay tuned, follow ETHStaker on Twitter and pay attention to the POAP channel on the ETHStaker Discord, which if you're here, I assume you know, but in case you're watching on YouTube, it's the way to get in is invite.gg/ETHStaker altogether. And I guess that's it. That's our kind of status update on what's coming.
So I don't want to take anyone's opportunity to ask questions, but hey, Michael, are you able to give us an update on the Genesis POAP voting?
Yeah, so later at some point today, we'll have the ETHStaker website will be updated, which is ETHStaker.cc. And when that gets updated, we will have the POAP Genesis Design Contest event, where we had something like 158 submissions, individual POAP designs from designers around the world that designed 3 exclusive Genesis POAPs, ranging from the depositing 32 ETH as a validator to proposing blocks at certain timestamps. So if you go to ETHStaker.cc, you'll be able to vote for the Genesis POAP that you think should be distributed for those various, I guess, I don't know, categories for POAPs. So, but again, that's should be
later today, right?
Yep. Yeah. By end of day, let's call it 7 p.m. Central Time.
That's 12 midnight.
Yeah.
End of day. But Michael has done an extraordinary job developing all of these tools for us, and so anyone who is itching to get those Genesis POAPs, please recognize it takes a lot of work to get this kind of thing up and running. And so I know Patricio has been laying the foundation for years, and Michael has been helping to get this ready to go. So I'm really delighted for both of their efforts.
I just put on the Zoom chat a message to the gallery page of this event to see who got the POAP. It's 58 people, which is a nice number. But thank you very much, everyone who came and joined. Hopefully you also enjoyed it as much as we did.
We also have another community call. I think it's in 8 hours. Is that right?
That sounds right.
Maybe
7 hours and 5 minutes, I think.
Anyway, that call is with Dave Rugendijk, and we plan to talk then about the next iteration in trustless decentralized staking pools. So if you're joining us now, you might also be interested in joining us for the Dave Rugendijk call. So Status team or Nimbus team, any final thoughts? It sounds like you have a very well working client for light hardware that many of our, especially Raspberry Pi stakers, may be interested in using. Any closing thoughts?
I think one thing that perhaps we didn't mention was the idea is to integrate it with the Status desktop app next year, so you'll be able to monitor your validator through the Status desktop app. That's something that's important that I don't think we've communicated properly yet.
Also, maybe some people knows that we have an ETH1 client that is currently in progress and can sync slowly, but to the latest chain. The plan with this is many knows that we have to run a Geth or something, and we want to integrate that with ETH2 so that you can have Nimbus as a one binary that can monitor the ETH1 contract and run ETH2.
That's something I'd like to poke at just a little more. So right now, if I run Nimbus, what is the best location to get that ETH1 data? Am I using a private, or a data provider, or are you suggesting? Well, I'll let you answer the question.
No, so for now, use Geth, or maybe there are, so I've been looking into maybe optimized clients that have less state, because running Geth on ETH1 might take 300 gigabytes, which is a bit of a problem for resource-restricted devices. So there are research into having a better way to monitor the ETH1 contract, and otherwise, I think the Nevermind team has only takes 70 gigabytes to have the full ETH1 chain as well. And obviously, in a crutch, you can always use Infura or Alchemy.
And there's actually a full list at ethereumnodes.com. And for anyone who listens, I do encourage running a full ETH1 client. That is best practice, but I'm also about doing what works for you. And so it's good to hear that these data providers at ethereumnodes.com are also supported by Nimbus, because I feel like that should not be a barrier that prevents anyone from staking. If you can run a Geth, or if you can run a full node, you should. But if you can't, there are ethereumnodes.com that offer a bunch of endpoints. So,
well, there should be a little bit of disclaimer here that we didn't have the time to explore every possible Ethereum 1 provider out there. We've verified that the most popular ones, such as Infura and I believe Alchemy, was also mentioned by Mamy, work. We encourage people to try other providers, for example, on the test nets, and they can report their findings, perhaps some issues. Obviously, we are committed to support all of these providers in the future, but just our testing hasn't been thorough enough yet.
Sure. And my assumption was that they all provided the same type of data, but you're right. It is best to practice caution. And even when we encourage people to use Nimbus for staking, you should run it on testnet first and make sure that you're comfortable and confident that it works the way you expect it to before you deposit and try to run it on mainnet, because the last thing you want is that stress of not being able to validate when you thought you'd be able to. So thanks again to the Nimbus team.
Super Fizz, can I, one last thing is I think it's important to also note that it's not only for resource restricted devices, right? Nimbus works well on normal devices, and on a multi-core machine, you can pin Nimbus to a single core and have run Geth, Grafana, and all the other stuff on the rest of the cores without affecting Nimbus. So it really encourage you to try it out on all sorts of machines, not just resource restricted devices.
Sure, yeah, thank you. And I did focus on those resource restricted devices because I know that there's a large portion of the community that wants limited resource devices. So thank you for pointing out my blindsidedness. It was great talking to you guys. I learned so much. I'm looking forward to creating a state of the stake today where I encourage people to check out Nimbus. And if you are a viewer, I hope you will help us with sharing the link to the Nimbus Gitbook. And thanks again, everyone, for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
It's a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.